Margaret Hayes wrapped her arms around Buddy as the blizzard screamed through the underpass. 73 years old. Homeless for 2 years. Her dog, a 12-year-old golden retriever with gray around his muzzle, shivered against her chest. The temperature had dropped to 8 degrees. Wind chill made it feel like -20. She could feel Buddy's heartbeat slowing. Could feel her own body shutting down. Hypothermia was taking them both. She whispered into his fur.
"I'm sorry, boy. I'm so sorry I couldn't give you better."
Buddy licked her face weakly, still trying to comfort her, even as he was dying. Then, through the howling wind, she heard footsteps, heavy boots crunching through snow. A voice calling out. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Stay with me. Help is here." Tell us what city you're watching from in the comments below. We want to see how far this story about kindness and second chances travels across the world. And if you believe in stories that remind us why compassion matters, stories that show humanity at its best, even in the coldest moments, hit that subscribe button and stay with us until the end. Because what happens next will restore your faith in people. Now let me tell you how we got here. 6 hours earlier, Margaret Hayes sat on a bench outside Denver Public Library with Buddy at her feet. The sky was gray, heavy, the kind of gray that promised snow. Lots of it. The weather forecast had been talking about this storm for 3 days. Biggest blizzard in 20 years. Everyone was told to stay inside, stock up on supplies, don't travel unless absolutely necessary. But Margaret didn't have an inside. Hadn't had one for 2 years. Not since the medical bills from her husband's cancer treatment had taken the house. Not since she'd exhausted every option. Not since the system had failed her one too many times, and she'd ended up on the streets at 71 years old. Buddy nudged her hand with his nose. She scratched behind his ears. "I know, boy. It's going to be a rough night. But we've been through rough nights before. We'll get through this one, too." A young woman walked past, maybe 30, wearing an expensive coat, carrying shopping bags. She looked at Margaret, then quickly looked away, kept walking. That was the usual response. People saw a homeless elderly woman, and they looked away. Too uncomfortable, too complicated, too easy to pretend she didn't exist. But sometimes people helped. Sometimes they brought food, blankets, a few dollars. Those were the good days. Today wasn't shaping up to be one of those days. The library was closing early because of the storm. The security guard, a kind man named Thomas, who usually let Margaret sit inside until closing, approached. "Miss Hayes, I'm sorry. They're shutting us down in 10 minutes. Storm's supposed to hit hard. Do you have somewhere to go?" "I'll figure something out, Thomas. Don't worry about me. The shelters are all full. I checked. Winter storm protocol. Everyone's trying to get inside." "I know. We'll be okay." Thomas pulled out his wallet, handed her $40. "Please, take a cab to somewhere warm. A motel, a diner, anywhere but the streets tonight. This storm is serious." Margaret took the money. "Thank you, Thomas. You're a good man. You take care of yourself. And Buddy." After he left, Margaret counted the money. $40. She could get a motel room, cheap one, for one night. But motels didn't allow dogs, and she wasn't leaving Buddy outside in a blizzard. If she had to choose between a warm room and staying with her dog, she'd choose Buddy every time. He'd been with her for 12 years. Since he was a puppy, back when she still had a house, back when her husband Robert was alive. Buddy had been Robert's dog originally, a gift to himself after he retired from 30 years working at the post office. Robert had loved that dog. And when Robert died, when the cancer finally won, Buddy had been the only thing keeping Margaret going. She couldn't abandon him now. Wouldn't. even if it meant freezing. So she used the $40 differently. Went to a convenience store, bought dog food, water, some granola bars for herself, a cheap tarp. That left her with $8. By 4 p.m., the snow had started. Light at first, gentle flakes that melted when they hit the ground. But within an hour, it was coming down hard, thick, blinding. The temperature dropped fast. The wind picked up. The world turned white. Margaret found shelter under an overpass. It wasn't much. Concrete, cold, but it blocked some of the wind. She set up the tarp, created a small barrier against the elements, spread out her blankets. Buddy curled up beside her. "We've been in worse spots," she told him. "Remember that night in July, when it rained for 12 hours straight? We got through that. We'll get through this." Buddy's tail thumped weakly. He was old, arthritis in his hips. His vision was going. But he was still loyal, still loving, still the best friend she had. As darkness fell, the storm intensified. The temperature plummeted. Margaret's fingers went numb. Her toes felt like ice. She pulled Buddy closer, shared body heat. But it wasn't enough. The cold was winning. She thought about her life, how she'd gotten here. It hadn't been one big disaster. It had been 1,000 small ones. Robert's cancer, the medical bills, the house going into foreclosure, her own health problems, diabetes, high blood pressure, the medication she couldn't afford, the job she couldn't get because who hires a 70-year-old woman with no recent work history? She'd tried. God, she'd tried. Applied for assistance, for housing, for help. But the system was complicated. Required documents she didn't have. Required addresses she couldn't provide. Required patience she'd run out of. So she'd ended up here, under an overpass, in a blizzard, dying slowly. And the worst part? She wasn't alone. There were hundreds like her in Denver, thousands across the country. Elderly people who'd worked their whole lives, paid their taxes, raised families, and now they were freezing on the streets because the safety net had holes big enough to fall through. "I'm sorry, Buddy," she whispered. "You deserve better than this. You deserved a warm house, good food, a soft bed. Not this." Buddy licked her face, always forgiving, always loyal. Around 8 p.m., Margaret started to lose feeling in her extremities. Her thoughts became foggy. She knew the signs. Hypothermia, first stage. If she didn't get warm soon, she'd slip into second stage. Confusion, disorientation, eventually unconsciousness. She tried to stay awake, tried to keep moving, but her body wouldn't cooperate. The cold had seeped into her bones, into her soul. Buddy whimpered. He was cold too, his body shaking, his breathing shallow. "I love you, boy," Margaret said. "You've been the best dog, the best friend. Thank you for staying with me." She closed her eyes, just for a minute, just to rest. That's when she heard the footsteps, heavy boots, crunching through snow, getting closer. A voice, male, concerned. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Margaret tried to open her eyes. Couldn't. Too heavy. "She's hypothermic. Pulse is weak. We need to get her warm. Now." Different voice. Also male. Urgent. She felt hands on her, gentle but firm, lifting her. A blanket, thick, warm, wrapped around her shoulders. "The dog, too. Don't leave the dog." "I've got him. Riley, stay close." Margaret forced her eyes open. Saw a man. 30s. Military cut. Intense eyes. He was wrapping her in some kind of thermal blanket. "Ma'am, my name is Jack Morrison. I'm a Navy SEAL. I'm going to get you somewhere warm. Can you tell me your name?"
"Margaret," she managed. "Margaret Hayes."
"Okay, Margaret, stay with me. We're going to get through this, I promise." Another man appeared, also military bearing. He was holding Buddy, wrapping him in a blanket too. "This is Tyler. He's got your dog. What's his name?"
Buddy,
"Buddy's going to be fine. We're taking care of both of you." There was another dog, big, German Shepherd, wearing a vest that said K9. The dog was well trained, calm, standing beside Jack like a soldier. "That's Riley," Jack said. "My partner. He's the one who found you. Best nose in the Navy. We were doing cold weather training exercises when the storm hit. Riley alerted me that someone was in distress. Led me straight to you." Margaret tried to process this. Navy SEALs, K9, training exercises. None of it made sense. She was too cold, too tired. Why are you helping?" Jack looked at her, really looked at her. His eyes were kind. "Because you need help, and I'm not leaving anyone out here to die. Not on my watch." They carried her to a vehicle, military Humvee. The heater was running full blast. Tyler laid Buddy on the back seat. The dog was shivering, but alive. Jack sat in the driver's seat. Riley jumped into the passenger side. Tyler climbed in back with Margaret and Buddy. "Nearest hospital is 20 minutes away," Jack said. "But the roads are bad. Might take longer. Tyler, monitor her vitals." Tyler pulled out medical equipment, checked Margaret's pulse, her temperature. "Core temp is 89 degrees. She's in moderate hypothermia. The dog's not much better. We need to warm them slowly. Too fast could cause cardiac arrest. Keep them wrapped. Monitor continuously." As Jack drove through the blizzard, Margaret drifted in and out of consciousness. She heard them talking, coordinating. These were professionals, trained to save lives, and they were using that training to save her. Why? She was nobody, a homeless old woman, a burden on society. Why would Navy SEALs care? Tyler must have seen her confusion. "My grandmother was homeless for 6 months before we found her. Alzheimer's. She wandered away from her care facility, lived on the streets in Phoenix. By the time we tracked her down, she was in bad shape. I swore I'd never let that happen to someone else if I could prevent it. So when Jack said his canine was alerting to someone in distress, I didn't hesitate." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Your grandmother, did she recover?" "She did. Lives with my mom now. Gets the care she needs. Sometimes people just need someone to see them, to help. You're being seen now, Margaret. We've got you." They reached the hospital 40 minutes later. The emergency room was overwhelmed. Storm-related injuries, car accidents, hypothermia cases. But Jack walked straight to the admissions desk. "I need immediate treatment for severe hypothermia, elderly patient, critical condition." The nurse looked harried. "Sir, we're completely swamped. It's going to be at least 2 hours before—" Jack pulled out his military ID. "I'm Lieutenant Jack Morrison, Navy SEAL Team 7. This woman was dying in that blizzard. If she doesn't get treatment in the next 30 minutes, she might not make it. I'm asking you to find a way." Something in his voice, the authority, the urgency, the refusal to take no for an answer, made the nurse move. "Okay, bring her back. We'll get her stabilized." They took Margaret to a room, started warming protocols, IV fluids, heated blankets, monitoring equipment. A doctor came in, young, competent. She examined Margaret quickly. "You got here just in time. Another hour and we'd be looking at organ failure." "Who found her?" "I did," Jack said. "My canine alerted me. We were training nearby." The doctor looked at him with respect. "You saved her life, both of you." She looked at Riley. "Good dog." Riley's tail wagged once, professional to the core. "What about my dog?" Margaret asked weakly. "Buddy, is he okay?" The nurse checked her chart. "The vet clinic across the street is closed because of the storm, but we called the on-call veterinarian. She's coming in to examine him. He'll get the care he needs. Tyler had stayed with Buddy in the waiting room. He came back 20 minutes later. Vet says Buddy's going to be fine. Mild hypothermia, dehydration, arthritis that needs management. But he'll recover. They're keeping him overnight for observation. Margaret started crying. I can't pay for that. I don't have money for vet bills. I don't have money for any of this. Jack sat down beside her bed. Don't worry about money. We'll handle it. You can't. I can't let you. Margaret, you're a veteran's widow. Robert Hayes, 30 years postal service. I looked you up while we were driving. You're entitled to veteran spouse benefits, housing assistance, medical care. You shouldn't be on the streets at all. I tried. I applied. They said I didn't have the right documents. Said I needed proof of marriage, proof of his service, proof of everything. But I lost it all when I lost the house. I had nothing to prove anything. Jack's jaw tightened. That's unacceptable. The system failed you. But I'm not going to. We're going to fix this. All of it. Your benefits, your housing, your dog's care. Everything. Why? Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. Jack was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. My father was a Navy SEAL. Served for 25 years. Came home with PTSD. The VA failed him. Took months to get him into treatment. By the time they did, he'd lost his job, his marriage, almost lost his life. I watched the system fail someone who'd given everything for his country. I swore I'd never let that happen to someone else if I could prevent it. You're Robert's widow. He served. You supported him. Your family. And SEALs don't abandon family. Margaret couldn't speak, could only cry. For the first time in 2 years, someone was fighting for her. Someone saw her as a person, as worthy of help, as deserving of dignity. The doctor returned. Margaret, we're admitting you overnight. You need continued warming, fluids, monitoring, but you're going to be fine, thanks to these men and that incredible dog. What about after, when I'm released? I don't have anywhere to go. Jack stood. Yes, you do. Tyler and I are going to make some calls. By the time you're ready to leave this hospital, you'll have a place to stay. Long term. And Buddy will be with you. I promise. Over the next few hours, Jack and Tyler made good on that promise. They called veteran services, pulled strings, used their military credentials to cut through red tape. By midnight, they had Margaret enrolled in emergency veteran spouse housing, a small apartment, subsidized rent, available immediately. They'd also contacted a lawyer who specialized in veterans' benefits, pro bono. He was already working on restoring Margaret's full benefits, Social Security, Medicare, everything she was entitled to but had been denied. And the vet clinic? The on-call veterinarian, Dr. Sarah Chen, had examined Buddy, found he needed medications for arthritis, better nutrition, but he'd live. And when she heard Margaret's story, Dr. Chen offered free veterinary care for life. Anyone who loves their dog that much, who'd stay with him in a blizzard rather than abandon him, that's someone I want to help. The next morning, Margaret woke in the hospital bed. Warm, safe, alive. The storm had passed. The sun was shining through the window. Jack was sitting in a chair beside her bed. Riley was at his feet. Both of them had stayed all night. You didn't have to stay, Margaret said. Yeah, I did. I needed to make sure you were okay. You barely know me. I know enough. You're a survivor. A widow who loved her husband so much you kept his dog for 12 years. A woman who chose to freeze rather than abandon that dog. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Tyler entered, carrying coffee, and behind him was Buddy, walking slowly, but walking. The old golden retriever went straight to Margaret's bed, put his head on her hand.
Buddy!
Margaret scratched his ears.
Oh, boy, you're okay. You're really okay.
Dr. Chen followed. He's more than okay. With proper care and medication, he's got a few good years left. And you'll have the resources to give him that care now. Jack and Tyler made sure of it. Margaret looked at the two Navy SEALs, at the canine who'd found her, at the veterinarian who'd helped, at her dog who'd survived.
I don't know how to thank you. All of you. You saved our lives.
Jack shook his head. You saved your own life. You survived 2 years on the streets. You protected Buddy. You endured things most people couldn't imagine. We just helped you over the finish line. The strength was always yours. The social worker arrived an hour later. A woman named Patricia. She had paperwork, keys to the apartment, information about Margaret's benefits. Mrs. Hayes, your apartment is ready. 1 bedroom, ground floor, pet-friendly, fully furnished. You can move in today, and your benefits are being processed. Should be approved within 2 weeks. You'll have income, medical coverage, everything you need. Margaret couldn't believe it. 24 hours ago, she'd been dying under an overpass. Now she had a home, had help, had hope.
How did this happen so fast?
Patricia smiled. Because Lieutenant Morrison doesn't take no for an answer. He called every office, every official, every person who could help. And he made it clear that a veteran's widow freezing on the streets was unacceptable. People listened. That afternoon, Jack and Tyler drove Margaret and Buddy to the apartment. It was small, simple, but it had heat, running water, a bed, a kitchen. Everything Margaret had been without for 2 years. Buddy sniffed around, tail wagging. He seemed to remember what a home felt like. Jack carried in bags of groceries. Enough to get you started. And here, he handed Margaret an envelope. 3 months of rent, prepaid. Gives you time to get your benefits sorted without stress.
I can't accept this. It's too much.
It's not from me. It's from the Navy SEAL Foundation. They have emergency assistance programs for situations like this. You qualify. This is your money. Money you're entitled to as a veteran's spouse. Tyler added bags of dog food, toys, a new bed for Buddy. From Dr. Chen, she wanted to make sure Buddy had everything he needs. Margaret sat on the couch, overwhelmed. I don't understand. Why? Why does everyone care so much? Jack sat beside her. Because you matter. Because Robert mattered. Because no one who served this country, or supported someone who did, should ever end up on the streets. And because sometimes, all it takes is one person deciding to help. I decided to help. Then Tyler decided to help. Then Dr. Chen. Then Patricia. Then the Navy SEAL Foundation. One act of kindness multiplied. That's how change happens. One person at a time. I thought I was invisible. Thought no one saw me anymore. Riley saw you. Alerted me that someone needed help. And I listened. Sometimes the best thing we can do is pay attention. Notice people. See them. You were never invisible, Margaret. The system failed to see you. But you were always there. Always worthy of being seen. As the sun set, Jack and Tyler prepared to leave. They had to return to base, resume training, get back to their missions. Margaret walked them to the door. Thank you for everything, for saving my life, for giving me my dignity back, for helping Buddy, for all of it. Jack hugged her. You take care of yourself, and if you ever need anything at all, you call me. He handed her a card with his number. I will. And Jack, thank you for being the kind of man who stops, who helps, who sees people like me. People like you are heroes too. Surviving what you've survived, that takes courage most people never have to find. I'm honored to have helped." Riley came over, put his head under Margaret's hand. She scratched his ears. "And thank you, Riley. You're a very good dog. The best dog." Riley's tail wagged. Mission accomplished. After they left, Margaret sat in her new apartment. Buddy curled up beside her on the couch. The heat was running. The lights were on. The refrigerator was full. She was home. After 2 years, she was finally home. And it had taken a blizzard, a Navy SEAL, a canine with a perfect nose, and a refusal to look away when someone needed help. Margaret thought about all the other people still out there, still homeless, still invisible, still dying slowly on the streets. And she made a decision. When she got her benefits, when she was stable, when she had strength, she'd help them. She'd be the person who saw them, who stopped, who refused to let them freeze. Because that's what Jack had taught her. One act of kindness multiplied, one person at a time. That's how change happened. And Margaret Hayes, 73-year-old widow, survivor, woman who'd been invisible for too long, was going to make sure others were seen, starting tomorrow. Starting with the person she saw next who needed help. Starting with the same compassion Jack had shown her. Because that's what you did when someone saved your life. You passed it forward. You became the helper. You refused to look away. And in a world that often felt cold and cruel, that one decision to see people, to really see them, could save lives, could restore dignity, could prove that humanity still existed, even in the darkest, coldest moments. Margaret fell asleep that night in a real bed, with Buddy at her feet, warm, safe, alive, and filled with purpose she hadn't felt in years. The blizzard had almost killed her, but it had also saved her, because it had brought Jack Morrison and Riley into her life, had reminded her that she mattered, that she was worthy of help, that the world still had people who cared. And that was worth surviving for. Margaret woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through real windows. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Her body tensed, preparing for the cold, for the hard concrete, for Buddy's worried whimpering. Then she felt the mattress beneath her, the warm blanket, Buddy's weight at her feet. She was home. She had a home. The realization hit her again, fresh, overwhelming. She started crying before she could stop herself. Buddy climbed up the bed, licked the tears from her face. His arthritis made the movement slow, but he did it anyway. Always comforting, always loving. "We made it, boy. We actually made it." Her phone rang, the one Jack had given her yesterday. A basic smartphone, prepaid, so she could call if she needed anything. "Margaret, it's Patricia, the social worker. I'm calling to check on you. How was your first night?" It was wonderful. I slept in a real bed. Buddy slept beside me. We were warm." "That's what I wanted to hear. I'm coming by in an hour with some paperwork, your benefits application. Also some information about services available to you. Medical care, food assistance, everything you qualify for. Is that okay?" "Yes, thank you, for everything." After Patricia hung up, Margaret stood. Her body ached. 2 years of sleeping on concrete had done damage. Her back, her hips, her knees. But she could move, could walk to the bathroom, could brush her teeth with a real toothbrush. Small things, things she'd taken for granted her whole life. Now they felt like miracles. She fed Buddy, the good dog food Tyler had brought. Buddy ate slowly, carefully. His teeth weren't what they used to be, but his tail wagged the whole time. Then Margaret made herself breakfast. Toast, eggs, coffee. Real food cooked in a real kitchen. She sat at the small table, Buddy at her feet, and she thought about the past 2 years, the shame, the fear, the cold, the hunger, the invisibility. All of it came flooding back, not as present reality, but as memories, things she'd survived, things that had shaped her but no longer defined her. She thought about the other people still out there, still experiencing what she'd just escaped, still invisible, still freezing, still dying slowly. And she thought about Jack's words. One act of kindness multiplied, one person at a time. Patricia arrived exactly 1 hour later, professional, kind, efficient. She spread paperwork across Margaret's table. Okay, let's get you set up properly. First, veteran spouse benefits. Jack expedited this. You should have approval within a week instead of months. Monthly stipend, medical coverage, everything Robert's service entitled you to. I tried before. They said I needed documents I didn't have. They were wrong. Or, more accurately, they didn't want to do the extra work to verify without documents. But Jack made some calls, got Robert's service records directly from the Department of Defense, proved everything. You're approved. It's just processing now. Margaret felt tears building again. Robert served for 30 years, and it took a Navy SEAL to make sure his widow got what she was owed. Unfortunately, that's too common. The system is broken, but we're fixing it for you. Now, medical care. You mentioned diabetes and high blood pressure? Yes. I haven't had medications in over a year. Couldn't afford them. Patricia pulled out another form. You have an appointment at the VA clinic tomorrow, 9 a.m. They'll examine you, prescribe what you need. All covered, no cost. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. Jack called the clinic director personally, explained the situation. She cleared her schedule. You're priority 1. Margaret couldn't process how much had changed in 24 hours, from dying under an overpass to priority 1 at the VA clinic. It didn't seem real. There's more, Patricia said. Food assistance, SNAP benefits. You qualify. I've pre-filled the application. Just need your signature. Should be approved within 3 days. And there's a food bank 2 blocks from here. I've already called them. They're expecting you. You can pick up groceries today if you need them. I have groceries. Jack brought them. Then go anyway. Stock up. You're entitled to it. And they have pet food too. For Buddy. After Patricia left, Margaret sat with all the paperwork, all the approvals, all the help. It was overwhelming. Wonderful. But also terrifying. Because what if it disappeared? What if this was temporary? What if the system failed her again? Buddy nudged her hand. She looked down at him. His brown eyes were trusting, calm. He didn't worry about tomorrow. He just lived in this moment. This warm, safe, fed moment. Margaret decided to be more like Buddy. To appreciate what she had now instead of fearing what might come. She put on her coat, the one she'd been wearing for 2 years. Dirty, torn, inadequate. Then she remembered. Patricia had mentioned a clothing bank. She called the number. Hello, this is Community Closet. How can I help you? My name is Margaret Hayes. Patricia Rodriguez said I should call. About getting some clothes? Oh, yes, Mrs. Hayes. We've been expecting you. Can you come by today? We have a full selection. Winter coats, regular clothes, shoes, whatever you need. I don't have transportation. That's okay. We're only 4 blocks from your building. I can give you directions. Or if you'd prefer, I can have someone pick you up. Margaret thought about it. 4 blocks. She could walk 4 blocks. She'd walked miles through the cold. 4 blocks in daylight was nothing.
I can walk, thank you.
She took Buddy with her. The streets were still covered in snow from the blizzard, but the sidewalks had been cleared. Other people were out, walking, shopping, living their lives. Some of them looked at her, saw the homeless woman, the dirty coat, the old dog, and looked away. Still invisible to them, still something to avoid. But some people smiled, nodded. One woman stopped.
What a beautiful dog! What's his name?
Buddy, he's 12.
He's gorgeous. You can tell he's well loved.
That simple interaction, that acknowledgement, it meant more than the woman could know. Someone seeing her as a person, as a dog owner, as worthy of conversation. The community closet was in a church basement. Warm, well organized, racks of clothes, shelves of shoes. A kind woman named Rosa greeted her. "Mrs. Hayes, welcome. Patricia told me about your situation. I'm so glad you're getting the help you need. Let's find you some proper winter clothes." Rosa treated her with dignity. Didn't judge, didn't pity, just helped. Brought coat after coat until they found one that fit perfectly. Warm, waterproof, new. "This was donated last month, never worn, tag still on. It's yours." "I can't afford, it's free. That's what we do here. Help people who need help. No charge, no judgment, just kindness." They found her pants, sweaters, shoes that actually fit, socks, underwear, everything she needed. Rosa even found a warm dog jacket for Buddy. "He's elderly. He needs to stay warm too." Margaret left with 3 bags of clothes, more than she'd owned in 2 years. And for the first time in forever, she felt like a person again. Not a homeless woman, just a person who deserved dignity. When she got back to the apartment, her phone rang. Jack. "Margaret, it's Jack Morrison. How are you doing?"
I'm good. Patricia came by. I have appointments, benefits. I even got new clothes.
"That's great. Listen, I wanted to check in on something. I know you mentioned wanting to help other people, other homeless folks. I have an idea if you're interested."
What kind of idea?
"There's a shelter downtown, Rocky Mountain Rescue Mission. They provide meals, beds, support services. They're always looking for volunteers. People who understand what it's like, who can connect with the clients. I called the director, told her about you. She'd love to meet you, if you're interested." Margaret's heart raced.
You think I could help?
"I think you're exactly who they need. Someone who's been there, who understands, who can offer hope because you're living proof that recovery is possible. No pressure, but if you want to volunteer, the opportunity is there."
When can I start?
Jack laughed. "That's what I thought you'd say. How about next week? Give yourself time to get settled, get your medical stuff sorted. Then we'll set up a meeting."
Thank you, Jack, for everything. For seeing what I could be instead of what I was.
You were always this person, Margaret. You just needed the support to show it. After he hung up, Margaret looked at Buddy.
What do you think, boy? Should we help people?
Buddy's tail wagged, which Margaret took as yes. The next day, she went to her VA appointment. The doctor was thorough, examined her, ran tests. The news wasn't great. Her diabetes was poorly controlled after a year without medication. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. She had frostbite damage to her toes from the blizzard. Malnutrition, dehydration. "You're lucky to be alive," the doctor said. "Another few months on the streets and we'd be looking at organ failure. But we can fix this. Medications, diet, monitoring. You'll need to come in weekly for a while, but you can recover. I want to recover. I want to help other people. Can't do that if I'm sick." The doctor smiled. "That's the right attitude. Let's get you healthy." She left with 6 prescriptions, all covered by her benefits, all free. The pharmacy tech was patient, explained each medication, when to take it, what it did. Treated her like a person who mattered. Small kindnesses, everywhere. Building on each other. That week, Margaret's benefits were approved. Direct deposit started. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough to live with dignity. Enough to stop worrying about tomorrow. Enough to start thinking about helping others. She also received a check, back pay, for the months she should have been receiving benefits, but wasn't. Nearly $8,000. Margaret stared at the number. She'd been homeless, starving, freezing, while this money sat in the government account waiting for her. If the system had worked properly, if someone had helped her navigate the paperwork, if anyone had cared, she'd never have ended up on the streets. The anger surprised her. She'd spent 2 years accepting her situation, believing she deserved it somehow. But she hadn't. She deserved help. Robert had served his country. She'd supported him. They'd paid taxes, followed rules, done everything right, and the system had failed them anyway. But being angry wasn't productive. So Margaret decided to use that anger as fuel, to make sure others didn't fall through the same cracks. She called Jack. "I'm ready to volunteer at the shelter. When can we set up that meeting?" "Tomorrow work? I can pick you up, introduce you to the director. Riley would love to see Buddy again, too." The next day, Jack arrived with Riley. The German Shepherd greeted Buddy like an old friend. The 2 dogs sniffed each other, tails wagging. Jack and Margaret watched them. "Riley doesn't usually bond with other dogs," Jack said. "But Buddy's special. Saved his life just like you did. Riley respects that." They drove to Rocky Mountain Rescue Mission. The building was large, institutional. But inside, it was warm, clean. People were eating breakfast, talking, laughing, getting help. The director was a woman named Linda Santos, 50s, warm smile, former social worker. She shook Margaret's hand firmly. "Mrs. Hayes, Jack told me about your situation. I'm so glad you're getting the support you need, and I'm thrilled you want to volunteer here. I want to help people who are where I was. Let them know recovery is possible." That's exactly what we need, peer support. Someone who's walked the path, who understands. "Come on, let me show you around." Linda took Margaret through the shelter, showed her the dining hall where 3 meals a day were served, the sleeping areas, men's and women's separated, clean beds, lockers for belongings, showers, laundry facilities. "We can house 80 people per night, but we turn away at least that many because we're full, especially in winter. The need is overwhelming." They visited the case management office, where social workers helped clients apply for benefits, find housing, get medical care. Everything Margaret had needed but couldn't access alone. "How many people do you help?" "Last year, we served over 1,500 individuals, but only about 30% successfully transitioned to permanent housing. The system is broken. Resources are limited, and many people have complex needs: mental health, addiction, disabilities. It's not as simple as just giving someone an apartment." "What can I do?" Talk to people. Listen. Share your story when appropriate. Offer hope. Sometimes that's the most valuable thing we can give: the knowledge that someone else made it through. Margaret started volunteering 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 hours each day. She'd arrive with Buddy. The dog was therapeutic. People who wouldn't talk to humans would talk to Buddy, would pet him, would let their guard down. And then Margaret would start conversations. Gentle, non-judgmental, just person to person. She met Sarah, 43 years old, homeless for 6 years after a divorce left her with nothing. Mental health issues she couldn't afford to treat. Living in her car until it was repossessed.
"Everyone tells me to just get a job," Sarah said. "Like it's that easy. I have anxiety so bad I can barely leave my car. How am I supposed to interview? How am I supposed to function in a workplace?"
Margaret listened. "I understand. I felt that way too. Invisible. Broken. Like I'd never be normal again. But I got help. Medical care. Therapy. It's slow, but it's possible. You're not alone." She met Robert, 67 years old, Vietnam veteran, PTSD that had destroyed his marriage, his career, his life, living under bridges for 12 years. "The VA gave up on me," he said bitterly. "I'm too broken to fix, too damaged. Might as well stay here. I'm a veteran's widow. My husband served 30 years. The VA failed us too. But someone fought for me, made them help. You deserve the same. Let me connect you with someone who can fight for you." Margaret called Jack, told him about Robert. Jack came to the shelter that same day, talked to Robert, veteran to veteran, started the process of getting him into VA programs specifically designed for veterans with PTSD. "You served your country," Jack told Robert. "Your country owes you better than this, and I'm going to make sure you get it." She met Maria, 29 years old, 2 kids in foster care. Lost them when she lost her housing. Working 3 jobs but still couldn't afford rent in Denver's expensive market. Sleeping in shelters, trying desperately to get her children back. "The court says I need stable housing, but I can't get housing without proving I have custody. It's impossible. I'm losing them. I'm losing my babies." Margaret's heart broke. "Let me talk to someone. There are programs, resources. You shouldn't have to choose between housing and your children." She called Patricia, explained Maria's situation. Patricia connected Maria with a legal aid attorney who specialized in family reunification. Within 3 weeks, Maria had emergency housing, a caseworker, a path to getting her children back. Every person Margaret helped, every connection she made, it multiplied. One act of kindness leading to another, just like Jack had said. But it wasn't easy. Some people couldn't be helped. Addiction was too strong. Mental illness was too severe. The system's failures were too complete. Margaret met James, 34 years old, heroin addiction that had started with prescription painkillers after a work injury. He'd lost everything: family, job, home, health. He wanted help, wanted to get clean, but the wait list for treatment beds was 6 months long. "I'll be dead in 6 months," James said matter-of-factly. "Overdose. Probably in the next few weeks. I've accepted it. There's no help coming fast enough." Margaret refused to accept that. She called every treatment center, every program, every resource she could find. Finally found a nonprofit that had an emergency bed available, but it cost $5,000, money James didn't have. Margaret didn't hesitate. She used her back pay, the money from her benefits, paid for James's treatment. 30 days inpatient, then 90 days transitional housing. When Jack found out, he was concerned. "Margaret, that was your savings, your safety net. What if you need it?" "I needed it to save a life. That's the best use of money I can imagine." James has a mother who hasn't seen him sober in 10 years. She deserves to have her son back, and he deserves a chance. James went to treatment, completed the program, 90 days sober, then 6 months, then a year. He called Margaret on his sobriety anniversary. "You saved my life. I was ready to die, And you refused to let that happen. I'm working now, rebuilding relationships with my family, living clean, because you cared when nobody else did.
Thank you, Margaret cried. Happy tears, proud tears.
This was what Jack had meant. One person, one decision to help, ripples that spread outward. But the work took a toll. Every heartbreak, every failure, every person she couldn't save. It accumulated, weighed on her. 3 months into volunteering, Linda pulled her aside.
Margaret, you're doing incredible work, but you're burning out. I see it. You're taking on too much, trying to save everyone. You need to take care of yourself too.
But there are so many people, so much need. How can I rest when people are suffering?
Because if you burn out, you can't help anyone. You're not a superhero. You're a human being who's been through trauma herself. You need boundaries, rest, self-care. Otherwise, you'll end up right back where you started. Margaret knew Linda was right, but stopping felt wrong. Every person she didn't help, every call she didn't make, every problem she didn't solve, it felt like failure. That night, she talked to Buddy. The old dog listened like he always did, patient, understanding.
I don't know how to help everyone. I want to, but I can't. And that breaks my heart.
Her phone rang. Jack. Margaret, Tyler and I are in town. Want to grab dinner? Buddy can come too. We found a pet-friendly restaurant. She almost said no. She was tired, emotionally drained. But something made her accept. They met at a small Italian place that allowed dogs. Riley and Buddy curled up under the table. Jack and Tyler looked good, healthy, strong, men who knew their purpose and lived it. How's the volunteering going? Tyler asked.
It's hard. I want to save everyone, but I can't. Some people are too broken, or the system is too broken, or I'm too broken. I don't know anymore.
Jack leaned forward. Let me tell you something about SEAL training. They teach you that you can't save everyone, that some missions fail despite your best effort, that you have to accept losses and keep moving forward. It's brutal, but it's true. You do your best. You fight for every life. But you don't get to control the outcome. You only control the effort.
How do you live with the failures?
By remembering the successes. Every person you save, every life you change. That's victory. James is sober. Robert is getting VA care. Maria is getting her kids back. Those are wins. Celebrate them. Honor them. Let them fuel you instead of letting the failures break you. Tyler added, My grandmother, the one who was homeless, she died last year. Peaceful, in her sleep, surrounded by family, because we found her, because we got her help. That's 6 years she had that she wouldn't have had otherwise. 6 years of dignity, of love, of being seen. You're giving people that gift. That matters. Margaret felt something shift inside her. They were right. She couldn't save everyone, but she could save someone, and someone was worth fighting for. Thank you, both of you, for reminding me why this matters. After dinner, Jack drove her home. Buddy fell asleep in the back seat. Riley kept watch from the front. Margaret, I have something to tell you. Riley's retiring. He's 8 years old, served with me for 6 years. But his hips are going. Arthritis. Same as Buddy. He's earned his rest. And I wanted to ask you something. Would you consider fostering him, just temporarily, until I can transition him into a permanent home? He knows you, trusts you, and I think having another dog might help Buddy too. Margaret's heart swelled. You'd trust me with Riley? I trust you with my life. Riley's easier. And just like that, Margaret went from being homeless with one aging dog to having a home
and 2 aging dogs, both of them heroes in their own right, both of them deserving of rest and love and dignity. Riley moved in the next week. He and Buddy bonded immediately. 2 old warriors, both retired, both loved, both safe. And Margaret continued her work at the shelter, with better boundaries, better self-care, better understanding of what was possible and what wasn't. She couldn't save everyone, but she could save someone. And someone was always worth the fight. 6 months into having both dogs, Margaret noticed something strange happening. People started coming to the shelter specifically asking for her. Not for services, not for food or beds, for her. Linda approached her one Wednesday morning. "Margaret, there's a woman outside who won't come in. Says she'll only talk to you. Her name is Dorothy. She's been sleeping in her car for 3 months." Margaret found Dorothy sitting on the curb, late 60s. Clean clothes, but the kind of clean that comes from washing in gas station bathrooms. Hands shaking, eyes avoiding contact.
Dorothy, I'm Margaret. Linda said you wanted to talk to me. I heard about you, from Sarah, the woman you helped. She said you understand, that you were homeless too. I was, for 2 years, with my dog Buddy. We survived a blizzard last winter. Barely. Dorothy looked up. I have a cat, in my car. They won't let me bring her into shelters, so I stay in the car. But it's getting repoed next week. The bank sent final notice. After that, I have nowhere. Margaret's heart clenched. She'd been in this exact position, choosing between shelter and her dog. Choosing her dog every time. What's your cat's name? Whiskers. She's 15. She's all I have left. My husband died 4 years ago. Heart attack. I couldn't keep up with the mortgage alone. Lost the house. Lost everything. Except Whiskers. I can't lose her too. You won't. We'll figure this out together. Come with me. Dorothy hesitated. What about Whiskers? She's in the car. Bring her. I have 2 dogs at home. We'll sort this out. Dorothy's hand shook as she retrieved the cat carrier from her beat-up Toyota. Whiskers was a small calico, old, skinny, but alert. Dorothy held the carrier like it contained the most precious thing in the world, which it did. It contained her last connection to the life she'd lost. The last piece of her husband. The last thing that made her feel human. Margaret understood completely. She called Patricia, explained Dorothy's situation. Patricia sighed. The system isn't set up for this. Most housing programs don't allow pets. The few that do have year-long waiting lists. I can try, but... Try harder. This woman is about to lose her car. She'll be on the streets with a 15-year-old cat. In winter. That's a death sentence for both of them. Margaret, I know you care, but there are hundreds of Dorothys. I can't make exceptions for everyone. Then change the system. Make it so elderly people with pets don't have to choose between shelter and their animals. Make it so compassion is built into the process instead of being the exception. There was silence on the other end. Then Patricia spoke quietly. You're right. The system is broken. But I'm one social worker. I can't fix it alone. Then let's fix it together. You know the system. I know the need. Jack knows how to cut through bureaucracy. We can do this. After she hung up, Margaret realized what she'd just committed to. Changing the system. Not just helping individuals, actually changing how things worked. It was ambitious, maybe impossible, but someone had to try. She brought Dorothy home, introduced her to Buddy and Riley. The dog sniffed Whiskers' carrier curiously, but gently. Riley, ever the professional, kept his distance, respecting the cat's space. You can stay here, Margaret said, on my couch,
Until we figure out something permanent. You and Whiskers both. Dorothy started crying. I can't impose. You don't even know me. 6 months ago, I was dying under an overpass. A Navy SEAL found me, saved my life, gave me this apartment, helped me get benefits, changed everything. He didn't know me either. He just helped. Because that's what you do. You help. Now I'm helping you. Pass it forward. How do I pay you back? You don't. You just help the next person when you're able. That's how kindness works. It multiplies. Dorothy stayed. The arrangement was temporary. Awkward. 2 elderly women and 3 elderly animals in a 1-bedroom apartment. But it worked. They shared meals, shared stories, became friends. And Margaret started researching how many elderly homeless people had pets. How many were forced to choose between shelter and animals? How many died on the streets because the system didn't accommodate that bond? The numbers were staggering. Approximately 10% of homeless individuals had pets, but fewer than 3% of shelters allowed animals, which meant thousands of people were choosing streets over shelter, choosing death over abandoning their animals. This is fixable, Margaret told Jack when he called. We just need pet-friendly housing, transitional facilities that allow animals. It's not complicated. It just requires people to care. You're right. So let's make people care. What do you need? Funding, a building, support from the VA for homeless veterans with pets, and someone with your pull to make phone calls that get answered. Done. Give me 2 weeks. I'll put together a proposal. You gather data, real stories, real people. We'll present it to the VA and local housing authorities. Make it impossible to ignore. 2 weeks later, they had a presentation. Margaret had collected stories from 37 homeless individuals with pets, all of them choosing streets over shelters, all of them at risk, all of them deserving better. Jack had pulled together funding sources, VA grants, nonprofit donations, private donors from the Navy SEAL Foundation. Enough to start small. A pilot program, 10 units, pet-friendly, for homeless elderly and veterans. They presented to the Denver Housing Authority. Margaret spoke, told her story, told Dorothy's story, told the stories of people she'd met at the shelter, made it personal, made it real, made it impossible to dismiss as statistics. These are people who worked their whole lives, who paid taxes, who raised families, who served their country in some cases. They're not asking for luxury, they're asking for basic dignity, a roof, safety, and the ability to keep the animals who've been their only comfort through hell. That's not too much to ask. The Housing Authority director, a stern woman named Carol Henderson, listened, took notes, asked questions. At the end, she spoke. Mrs. Hayes, your story is compelling, and I want to help. But I need to be honest with you. There's opposition. Some board members think pet-friendly housing is too expensive, too complicated, too risky. They'll vote against this. Jack leaned forward. Then we change their minds. We show them the cost of not doing this. Emergency room visits for hypothermia, hospitalizations, deaths. All preventable if we just provide basic housing. The money's being spent either way. This way saves lives. Carol nodded slowly. You make a good point. Let me take this to the board. I'll push for it. But I can't promise anything. 3 weeks later, Carol called. We approved it. Pilot program. 10 units, 2-year trial. If it works, we'll expand. Congratulations, Mrs. Hayes. You just changed policy. Margaret couldn't believe it. She'd gone from homeless to changing housing policy in 7 months. It didn't seem real. But it was real, and it moved fast. Within 2 months, they had a building. Old apartment complex that had been sitting empty. The owner donated it in exchange for tax breaks. Renovations began. Pet-friendly modifications. Secure fencing. Everything needed to accommodate animals. They called it second chance housing for people and pets who deserved another chance. Dorothy was the first resident. She moved into a studio apartment with whiskers, her own space, her own kitchen, her own bed. She cried when she got the keys. "I thought I'd die in that car. Thought Whiskers and I would freeze together. Now we have a home, a real home, because of you." Not because of me, because of us. You told your story. That mattered. Other residents moved in quickly. Richard, an 80-year-old veteran with a 3-legged dog named Tank. Susan, a 65-year-old former teacher with 2 cats. Miguel, a 72-year-old widower with a parrot that had belonged to his late wife. Each person, each animal, each story, all of them proof that the bond between humans and pets could be life-saving, that compassion needed to be built into systems, that small changes could save lives. But success brought attention. Media coverage. News stories about the homeless grandmother who'd survived a blizzard and now was changing policy. Reporters wanted interviews, documentaries, human interest pieces. Margaret hated it. She wasn't doing this for attention. She was doing it because it needed doing. Because people were suffering. Because the system was broken and someone had to fix it. Jack understood. You don't have to do interviews if you don't want to. But consider this. Every story reaches people who might donate, might volunteer, might care enough to demand change in their own cities. Your discomfort could multiply the impact. He was right. So Margaret did a few interviews, local news, a newspaper feature. She kept it simple, focused on the people being helped instead of herself. Made it clear this was about them, about the system, about change that needed to happen everywhere. The response was overwhelming. Donations poured in. Volunteers signed up. Other cities reached out asking how to replicate the program. What had started as 10 units in Denver was becoming a model for the country. And through it all, Margaret kept volunteering at Rocky Mountain Rescue Mission, kept connecting with people, kept listening to stories. Because that's where the real work happened, one person at a time. She was there when it happened, the phone call that changed everything again. Linda found her in the dining hall. "Margaret, there's a man here. Says he knew your husband, Robert Hayes. Says he served with him in the Postal Service. He's homeless, been on the streets for 6 months, wants to talk to you." Margaret's heart stopped. Someone who knew Robert? After all these years? She found him in the lobby, 60s, weathered face. But when he looked up, she recognized him. Tom Marshall, Robert's friend. His best friend from work. They'd been close. But Margaret had lost touch with everyone after Robert died, after the bills consumed her, after she lost the house. "Tom? Is that really you?" "Maggie, God, it's good to see you. I heard you were here, heard you were helping people. Had to come see for myself." They hugged. Margaret felt tears building. "What happened to you? Last I heard you'd retired, moved to Arizona with Susan." Tom's face fell. "Susan died 3 years ago. Cancer. Same as Robert. After she passed, I fell apart. Depression. Started drinking. Lost our savings. Lost the house. Lost everything. Ended up on the streets in Denver. Been here 6 months. Why didn't you reach out? I would have helped. I thought you were homeless too. Heard through the grapevine that you'd lost your house. Didn't know you'd gotten back on your feet until I saw you on the news last week. Took me a few days to work up the courage to come here." Margaret grabbed his hand. "You're here now. That's what matters.
We're going to get you help, benefits, housing, everything you need.
Maggie, there's something else. Something I need to tell you. About Robert.
What about him?
Tom looked uncomfortable. When Robert got sick, when the cancer got bad, he asked me to look after you, made me promise, said if anything happened to him, I'd make sure you were okay. I failed. I let him down, let you down. I'm so sorry. Margaret felt her throat tighten.
Tom, you didn't fail anyone. You were dealing with your own grief, your own loss.
You couldn't have known I'd end up homeless, but if I'd checked on you, if I'd stayed in touch, maybe you wouldn't have fallen through the cracks. Or maybe I would have anyway. The system failed me, not you. But Tom, there's something you can do now. Help me make sure others don't fall through those same cracks. I need someone who understands, who's been there. Will you help me with second chance housing? Help run the program? Tom looked stunned.
You'd trust me with that? After I failed Robert?
You didn't fail Robert, but you can honor him now by helping others the way he would have wanted, by being the person who sees people, who helps. That's how we honor the dead, by living in ways that would make them proud. Tom became the resident manager of Second Chance Housing. He had experience managing people from his postal service days. He understood homelessness from living it. And he was motivated by the memory of Robert, by the promise he'd made to look after Margaret that he felt he'd broken. Working with Tom brought Robert back to life in Margaret's memory. The stories Tom told, the jokes Robert used to make, the kindness he'd shown everyone he met. It hurt, but it also healed, reminded Margaret why she was doing this, for Robert, for herself, for everyone who'd been forgotten. But 3 months into Tom's tenure, Buddy got sick. The old golden retriever who'd been with Margaret for 12 years, who'd survived the blizzard, who'd been her comfort through the darkest times. He stopped eating, stopped walking, just lay on his bed breathing weakly. Dr. Chen examined him. Her face was grave.
It's his kidneys. They're failing. At his age, with his condition, treatment might buy him a few weeks, but it would be painful, expensive, and ultimately, he's not going to recover.
Margaret knew what Dr. Chen was saying. It was time. Time to let Buddy go. Time to stop his suffering, even though it would destroy her.
How long does he have?
Days, maybe a week.
He's not in terrible pain yet, but he will be soon. You'll know when it's time.
Margaret spent the next 3 days with Buddy. Barely left his side. Riley stayed close too. The German shepherd seemed to understand, would lie beside Buddy, guard him, comfort him. Jack came to visit, brought Tyler. Both men sat with Margaret, with Buddy, with Riley. He's a good dog, Jack said. One of the best. He survived a blizzard. Saved your life by giving you a reason to keep fighting. That's a hero. I don't know how to let him go. You do it by being with him, by making sure he's not alone, by loving him until the very end. That's all any of us can ask for. To be loved, to be seen, to matter. Buddy has all of that. Tyler added, My grandmother's dog, the one she had when she was homeless. He died 2 months before she did. She said it was like losing part of herself, but she also said the years they had together made it worth the pain of losing him. That's the price of love, but it's worth pain. The next day, Buddy couldn't stand, couldn't lift his head. His breathing was labored. His eyes were cloudy with pain. Margaret knew. It was time. Dr. Chen came to the apartment, made house calls for special cases. This was special. Buddy had been her first patient when Margaret came off the streets. Dr. Chen had invested in his recovery, in his life. She'd earned the right to be there at the end. Margaret sat on the floor, held Buddy's head in her lap, stroked his graying fur, whispered to him, "You're the best dog, the best friend. You stayed with me through everything. Through Robert's death, through losing the house, through 2 years on the streets, through the blizzard that almost killed us both. You never stopped loving me, never stopped being loyal. I love you so much, so much." Dr. Chen administered the injection, gently, professionally.
It'll be quick, peaceful. He'll just fall asleep.
Buddy looked up at Margaret, his brown eyes filled with trust, with love. His tail tried to wag one last time. Then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and was gone. Riley whined, nudged Buddy with his nose, trying to wake his friend. When Buddy didn't respond, Riley laid down beside him, mourning, understanding. Margaret held Buddy's body, sobbed. 12 years of love and loyalty ended. Gone. No more wagging tail, no more comforting presence, no more Buddy. Jack and Tyler stayed, sat with her, didn't try to fix it, just present, just there, the way Buddy had always been. "He died knowing he was loved," Jack said quietly. "That's all that matters. He had a good life, had you, had warmth and safety and dignity at the end. That's more than most get, human or animal." After Dr. Chen took Buddy's body for cremation, Margaret sat in the quiet apartment. Riley came over, put his head in her lap, the way Buddy used to, offering comfort, continuing Buddy's mission. "You're a good boy, Riley. Thank you." Riley's tail thumped once. Then he stayed, keeping watch, keeping Margaret company, being what she needed. Tom came by that evening, brought food, sat with Margaret. They talked about loss, about Robert, about Susan, about Buddy, about how grief was the price of love, but love was worth it anyway. "Robert would be proud of you," Tom said, "of what you're doing, helping people, changing policy, creating second chances. He always said you were stronger than you thought. He was right. I don't feel strong. I feel broken. Strength isn't not breaking. It's breaking and still getting back up. You've done that over and over. That's real strength." The next week was hard. The apartment felt empty without Buddy. Margaret kept expecting to see him, to hear his tags jingling, to feel his warm body beside her on the couch. But he was gone. Riley tried to fill the void, stayed close, followed her everywhere. But it wasn't the same. Riley was Jack's dog, on loan. Buddy had been hers. Her connection to Robert, her reminder of better times. Losing him felt like losing Robert all over again. But she kept working, kept volunteering, kept helping people. Because that's what Buddy would have wanted. For her to keep going, to keep loving, to keep making a difference. Dorothy understood. "I lost my husband's dog 2 years after he died. Felt like the last piece of him was gone. But then I got Whiskers. She needed me. And needing to care for her kept me going. Maybe that's the lesson. We keep going by being needed, by having purpose." A month after Buddy died, Jack called. "Margaret, I need to talk to you about Riley. He's officially retired from active duty. I need to find him a permanent home. I was going to go through the normal adoption process, but I think he should stay with you, if you want him." Margaret's heart clenched. "Jack, he's your dog, your partner. How can you give him up?" "Because he's happier with you. I see it every time I visit. He loves being with you, having purpose again. And you need him. He can't replace Buddy, but he can be himself. And that might be enough." "What about you? Won't you miss him?" "Every day. But love isn't about holding on. It's about doing what's best. Riley deserves a peaceful retirement with someone who loves him. You deserve a companion who understands loss and loyalty. It's the right match. Then yes, I want him. I'll take good care of him. I promise. I know you will. That's why I'm giving him to you. Riley became hers officially. Not a replacement for Buddy, but his own dog, with his own personality, his own way of offering comfort. And slowly, Margaret's heart started healing. She scattered Buddy's ashes in the park where she and Robert used to walk him, where happier memories lived. Tom came with her, Riley too. They said goodbye properly, with love, with gratitude, with the promise to keep living in ways that honored Buddy's loyalty. And Margaret kept that promise. Second Chance Housing expanded to 20 units, then 40. Other cities started similar programs. The ripple effect continued. One act of kindness multiplying across the country. She received an award from the mayor, recognition for her work helping homeless elderly and veterans. She accepted it, but dedicated it to Buddy. This award isn't mine. It belongs to a 12-year-old golden retriever who refused to let me give up, who stayed loyal through hell, who reminded me every day that love matters, that life matters, that we're all worthy of dignity. Thank you, Buddy, for everything. The audience stood, applauded. Many had tears in their eyes because they understood that sometimes the greatest heroes have 4 legs, that sometimes salvation comes from the loyalty of a dog who refuses to let you die alone, and that sometimes surviving hell isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a mission to make sure others don't face the same hell alone. That was Buddy's legacy, not just surviving the blizzard, but inspiring Margaret to build something that would outlast them both. A system of compassion, of second chances, of refusing to look away when people needed help. 1 year after the blizzard, Margaret stood in Second Chance Housing, watched residents and their pets, saw Dorothy playing with Whiskers, Tom helping a new resident move in, Riley making his rounds like the professional he'd always been. And she thought about the night she'd almost died, about Jack and Riley finding her, about the chain of events that had led from that moment to this one, about how one person's decision to help had created ripples that were still spreading. She'd survived. But more than that, she'd transformed survival into purpose, turned her pain into empathy, used her experience to build something that would help thousands. That was the real victory, not just living, but living in ways that made other people's lives better. That was what Buddy had taught her, what Jack had shown her, what she now practiced every day. And as Riley came over to check on her, ever the guardian, ever the professional, Margaret scratched his ears and whispered, "Thank you." To him, to Buddy, to Jack, to everyone who'd refused to let her become just another statistic, just another forgotten elderly woman freezing on the streets. They'd seen her, and that seeing had saved her life. And now she spent every day seeing others, making sure they knew they mattered, that help existed, that second chances were possible. One person at a time, one act of kindness at a time. Building a world where nobody had to die alone in the cold because the system didn't care enough to help. That was the mission now, and Margaret intended to complete it. The crisis hit without warning. Margaret was at Second Chance Housing when Linda called from Rocky Mountain Rescue Mission. Her voice was tight with stress. "Margaret, we have a problem. The City Council is voting next week to cut funding for homeless services. 20% across the board. That includes Second Chance Housing. You could lose half your units." Margaret felt her stomach drop. "What? Why? The program is working. We have 93% success rate. People are getting stable, getting jobs, transitioning to permanent housing." "I know, But the city's facing budget shortfalls. They're cutting everything that's not essential. And apparently, housing homeless elderly with pets isn't essential. People will die. You know that. They'll end up back on the streets, back in blizzards, back where we found them. I know. That's why I'm calling. We need to fight this. Organize. Get people to the council meeting. Make noise. Show them this program matters. After hanging up, Margaret sat with the weight of it. 2 years of work, hundreds of lives changed. All of it threatened by a budget cut, by bureaucrats who saw numbers instead of people. Riley nudged her hand. The German shepherd could sense her distress. She scratched his ears. We're not giving up, boy. We didn't survive that blizzard to let them close us down now. She called Jack immediately. He was stationed in Virginia, training exercises. But he answered on the second ring. Margaret, what's wrong? The city's cutting funding. 20%. We could lose half of second chance housing. The vote is next week. There was silence. Then Jack's voice came back hard, determined. Not happening. I'll make calls, pull strings, get media attention. This program is too important to die because of politics. Jack, I know you're busy. This is more important. You saved lives, built something that actually works. I'm not letting bureaucrats destroy it because they can't balance a budget. Give me 24 hours. True to his word, Jack started making things happen. He called the Navy SEAL Foundation. They issued a statement supporting second chance housing, called it a model program that should be expanded, not cut. He contacted veterans organizations, got them to mobilize, to flood the city council with calls and emails. But it wasn't enough. The opposition was strong. A council member named Richard Brennan was leading the charge for cuts. He went on local news. We can't keep throwing money at programs that enable homelessness. These people need to take responsibility, get jobs, stop expecting handouts. Second chance housing is feel-good nonsense that wastes taxpayer money. Margaret watched the interview, felt rage building. Brennan had no idea what he was talking about, had never been homeless, had never struggled to find work at 70 years old with health problems and no recent job history, had never slept in a blizzard wondering if morning would come. She called the news station. I want to respond to Councilman Brennan. I want equal time. The producer was surprised. Mrs. Hayes, you want to go on camera? Yes. Brennan called my program feel-good nonsense. I want to tell him exactly what nonsense looks like, what it feels like to freeze, to be invisible, to be told you're worthless. Can you make that happen? We'd love to have you. Tomorrow at 6 p.m.? The next evening, Margaret sat across from the news anchor. Riley sat beside her in his service vest. The anchor started with basic questions: how the program worked, success rates, costs. Then they played Brennan's clip, his dismissive words about enabling homelessness, about wasting money. The anchor turned to Margaret. How do you respond to Councilman Brennan's characterization? Margaret looked directly into the camera. Councilman Brennan doesn't know what he's talking about. I was homeless for 2 years, with my dog, Buddy. We survived on the streets, slept under overpasses, went days without food. And the night of the blizzard last year, we were dying. Hypothermia. Both of us. Minutes from death. A Navy SEAL and his canine found us, saved us, got us help. That's not feel-good nonsense. That's life and death.
But the councilman says people need to take responsibility.
I worked my whole life. My husband served 30 years. We paid taxes, followed rules. Then cancer destroyed us financially. Medical bills took our house. The system failed us. I tried to get help. Applied for benefits I was entitled to as a veteran's widow. Got denied because I didn't have the right paperwork. I lost everything through no fault of my own. Where's the responsibility in a system that fails people who did everything right? The anchor leaned forward. What would you say to Councilman Brennan if he was here? I'd ask him to spend one night on the streets, in winter, with no food, no shelter, no help. Then tell me about responsibility. Tell me about wasting money. Tell me who deserves to freeze because the budget's tight. I've asked him to look Dorothy in the eye, 78 years old, living in her car with a cat, and tell her she's just looking for a handout. I've asked him to explain to Tom, a postal worker for 35 years, why his service doesn't matter enough to keep him housed. What happens if the council cuts your funding? Margaret's voice broke. People die. That's not hyperbole. That's fact. Last winter, 17 homeless individuals froze to death in Denver. 17 people who could have been saved if we had enough housing, if we had programs that worked. Second chance housing works. We have a 93% success rate. People stabilize, get jobs, transition to permanent housing. But if we lose funding, those people go back to the streets, and some of them won't survive. That blood is on the council's hands. The interview went viral. Thousands of shares. National media picked it up. Suddenly, second chance housing wasn't a local story. It was national news. Margaret's face was everywhere. The grandmother who survived a blizzard, who built a program to save others, who was fighting bureaucrats trying to shut it down. Donations poured in, small amounts from individuals, larger amounts from veterans organizations. The Navy SEAL Foundation pledged $50,000. But it wasn't enough. They needed consistent city funding to maintain operations. Private donations couldn't sustain long-term. The city council meeting was packed, standing room only. Margaret sat in the front row, Tom beside her, Dorothy, all the residents of Second Chance Housing, Linda from the shelter, Patricia, the social worker, and Jack, who'd flown in from Virginia specifically for this. Riley sat at Margaret's feet, calm, professional, but there as a reminder, as a symbol of what was at stake. Councilman Brennan spoke first. I understand emotions are high, but we have a responsibility to all taxpayers, not just special interests. The homeless problem in Denver is growing. We can't solve it by throwing money at programs with no accountability. Margaret was called to speak. She stood, walked to the microphone, looked at the council members, at Brennan specifically. My name is Margaret Hayes. 2 years ago, I was homeless, sleeping under an overpass with my dog. The night of the blizzard, we were dying. A Navy SEAL found us, saved us, got us into the system. Within weeks, I had housing, benefits I was entitled to, medical care, dignity. And I started volunteering, helping others, which led to Second Chance Housing, a program that houses homeless elderly and veterans with pets. In 18 months, we've served 92 people. 86 of them successfully transitioned to permanent housing or stable situations. 6 are still with us, getting the support they need. That's a 93% success rate. She paused. Let the numbers sink in. Councilman Brennan says we have no accountability. I disagree. We're accountable to the people we serve. To Dorothy, who was living in her car at 78, who now has an apartment, a job, a future. To Tom, who served 35 years and ended up on the streets when his wife died, who's now resident manager, helping others. To Richard, an 80-year-old veteran who would have frozen last winter without our program. To Susan, a retired teacher who lost everything and found hope with us. Those are real people, real lives, real accountability. Brennan interrupted. But at what cost? Your program costs the city $250,000 annually. That's money we could use for roads, schools, essential services. Essential services like keeping elderly people from freezing? Like honoring veterans who served this country? Like basic human dignity? If that's not essential, I don't know what is. And for the record, it cost $50,000 per person to handle a homeless individual through emergency rooms, police interactions, and crisis interventions. Our program costs $2,700 per person per year. We're saving the city money while saving lives. Another council member spoke. Mrs. Hayes, even with your success rate, can this program scale? Can it solve homelessness? No, one program can't solve everything, but it solves something. It saves lives,
Gives people dignity, creates pathways back to stability, and it proves that when you treat people with compassion instead of contempt, when you build systems that actually help instead of creating barriers, change is possible. Other cities are replicating our model. Phoenix, Seattle, Portland, because it works. Don't let Denver be the city that killed a working solution because of politics. Jack stood, asked for permission to speak. The council granted it. My name is Lieutenant Jack Morrison, Navy SEAL Team 7. I found Mrs. Hayes during that blizzard. My K-9 Riley alerted me to her. We got her and her dog Buddy to the hospital. Saved their lives. But saving one life wasn't enough. Margaret built something that saved 92 lives. That's 92 people who aren't using emergency services, aren't dying on our streets, aren't costing the system more than prevention. As a SEAL, I'm trained to complete missions. This program completes the mission. It gets people from crisis to stability. That deserves funding, not cuts. The council debated for 2 hours. Residents spoke. Advocates spoke. Opposition spoke. People arguing both sides. Finally, the vote came. The motion to cut funding passed. 5 votes to 4. Second Chance Housing would lose 40% of its budget. 24 units would have to close. 24 people and their pets would have to leave. Margaret felt like she'd been punched. They'd fought, made the case, shown the data, and lost anyway. Outside, reporters swarmed, asking for reactions. Margaret was numb, couldn't process. Jack stepped in. Mrs. Hayes needs time. We'll issue a statement tomorrow. He drove her home, Riley in the back seat. Neither of them spoke until they reached her apartment. I failed them, Margaret said. All those people. I promised them housing, stability, and now I have to tell them they're being kicked out. You didn't fail anyone. The system failed. The council failed. But you did everything possible. It wasn't enough. Sometimes it isn't. But you don't quit. You regroup. Find another way. That's what SEALs do. We adapt, overcome, complete the mission despite obstacles. How? We lost funding. We have 30 days to close 24 units. I don't have another way. Jack was quiet. Then his phone rang. He answered, listened. His expression changed. Are you serious? When did this happen? Is he okay? He hung up, looked at Margaret. His face was pale. That was Tyler. I'm being deployed. Emergency. Syria. High-risk extraction. Leave in 6 hours. Margaret felt fear grip her. Syria? Jack, that's dangerous. It's my job. I go where I'm ordered. But Margaret, before I leave, I need to tell you something. The Navy SEAL Foundation is doubling their donation. $100,000. And they're organizing a national fundraiser for Second Chance Housing. They believe in what you're doing. So do I. Don't give up. Promise me. I promise. But Jack, Syria. Please be careful. I'm always careful. Riley's staying with you. He's retired. Safe. Take care of him while I'm gone. How long will you be deployed? Unknown. Could be weeks, could be months. But I'll come back. I always do.
He left that night. Margaret didn't sleep, worried about Jack, worried about the program, worried about the 24 people she'd have to displace, worried about everything. The next morning, news broke. The Syria mission Jack was on had gone wrong. Ambush. Heavy casualties. Details were classified, but reports confirmed multiple Navy SEALs injured, some killed. Jack's name wasn't released. Military policy. No names until families were notified. But Margaret knew. She knew Jack was in danger. Maybe hurt. Maybe worse. She tried calling. No answer. Tyler's phone went to voicemail. The Navy wouldn't confirm anything. Riley sensed something was wrong, stayed close to Margaret. Anxious, waiting for Jack to come home. Days passed. No word. Margaret kept working. Had to. 24 people needed to be transitioned. She couldn't let her worry about Jack stop her from helping them. She found placements, called in favors, got Dorothy into subsidized senior housing, Tom into veterans housing through the VA, Richard into a nursing facility that allowed his dog. One by one, she found solutions. Not perfect, but workable. But 3 residents had nowhere to go. No family, no options. Nowhere that would take them and their pets. Margaret made a decision. They'll stay with me, temporarily, until we find permanent solutions. Tom protested. Margaret, your apartment is small. You can't house 3 people and 4 animals. Watch me. I'm not putting anyone back on the streets. Ever. We'll figure it out. Her apartment became crowded, chaotic. 3 elderly people, 4 pets. Not enough space. Not enough privacy. But everyone was safe, warm, fed. Then, 2 weeks into the deployment, Tyler called. Margaret, it's Tyler. I have news about Jack. Her heart stopped. Is he alive? He's alive, but he's hurt. IED explosion during the extraction. Shrapnel wounds, broken ribs, concussion. He's in Germany now. Military hospital. Stable, but serious. Can I talk to him? Not yet. He's sedated, but he'll recover. Jack's tough. He's been through worse. When is he coming home? Unknown. Could be weeks while he recovers. But Margaret, he asked about you. First thing when he woke up. Asked if you were okay. If Second Chance Housing was still operating. That's who he is. Nearly dies, and he's worried about you. Margaret cried. Relief, gratitude, fear. All of it mixed together. Jack was alive. Hurt, but alive. That was enough. The news about Jack spread. Social media, news coverage. The Navy SEAL who'd saved a homeless grandmother was now fighting for his own life. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Donations increased. People inspired by Jack's service, by his compassion, by his willingness to risk his life for others. The fundraiser hit $200,000, then $300,000, then $500,000. It was enough. Enough to fund Second Chance Housing for 2 years. Enough to expand to 60 units. Enough to ensure nobody got kicked out. Nobody went back to the streets. But Margaret couldn't celebrate. Not with Jack in a hospital halfway around the world. Not with the man who'd saved her life, now fighting to recover from his own near-death experience. She visited Riley every day. The German shepherd waited by the door, watching, expecting Jack to come home. It broke Margaret's heart. He's coming back, Riley. I promise. Jack always comes back. 3 weeks later, Jack called. His voice was weak, but recognizable. Margaret, heard you've been taking care of Riley. Of course. He's family. How are you feeling? Like I got blown up, but I'll heal. Margaret, Tyler told me about the fundraiser, about the expansion. You did it.
You saved the program. We did it. Your foundation started it. People donated because of you, because you inspire them. You're a hero, Jack. I'm a SEAL doing my job. You're the hero, building something from nothing,
Creating hope where there was none. That's harder than any mission I've run. When are you coming home? Month, maybe. More surgery, physical therapy. But I'll heal. And when I do, first thing I'm doing is visiting Second Chance Housing, seeing what you've built, meeting the people you've saved. That's what keeps me going. After he hung up, Margaret looked at Riley. He's coming home, boy. Your partner's coming home. Riley's tail wagged. The first time in 3 weeks. The expansion of Second Chance Housing moved forward. 60 units now, enough to house everyone who needed it, plus capacity for more. The waiting list was long, but shrinking. Tom hired more staff, built systems, created processes, made sure the program could sustain itself even without Margaret's day-to-day involvement. You built this, Tom told her. But it's bigger than you now. That's success. When it outlives the founder. When it becomes institutional instead of individual. Margaret understood, but it was hard letting go. This was her mission, her purpose, born from her suffering, shaped by her determination, built with her hands. But Tom was right. For it to last, it had to transcend her, had to become something the city committed to, something the community supported, something that would exist long after she was gone. 4 weeks after his injury, Jack returned to the United States. He couldn't deploy anymore. His injuries were too severe. The Navy medically retired him. Honorable discharge, full benefits. But his SEAL career was over. Margaret met him at the airport, with Riley. The reunion between Jack and his canine was emotional. Riley whined, jumped, licked Jack's face. Pure joy. Jack hugged the dog. I missed you too, boy. Missed you so much. Then he looked at Margaret. Thank you for taking care of him, for everything. You saved my life. Taking care of Riley was the least I could do. They drove to Second Chance Housing. Jack wanted to see it. All 60 units, full occupancy, people living with their pets, stable, supported, thriving. Dorothy showed him her apartment. Because of Margaret and you, I have a home. Whiskers has a home. We're not in a car anymore, not waiting to freeze. We're alive. Thank you. Tom gave Jack a tour. This is what you started, that night in the blizzard, when you decided to help one homeless woman. Look what it became. 60 people housed. Hundreds more to come as we expand to other cities. One decision, one act of compassion, changed everything. Jack looked at Margaret. You did this. I just helped one person. You helped hundreds. No, we did this, together. You saved me, I saved others. They're saving more. That's how it works. Kindness multiplying, one person at a time. That night they had dinner. Margaret, Jack, Tyler, Tom, Dorothy. All the people who'd been part of this journey. From the blizzard to the city council fight, to the fundraiser, to now. Jack raised his glass. To Margaret, the strongest person I've ever met, who survived hell and built heaven for others, who proved that one person can change the world. To all of us, Margaret corrected, who proved that, together, we can do impossible things, who showed that compassion matters, that people matter, that we're all worth saving. They drank, celebrated, but Margaret was already thinking ahead to the next challenge, the next person who needed help, the next impossible thing that needed doing. Because that was the mission now. Not just surviving, not just helping a few people, but changing systems, building programs, creating a world where nobody had to freeze alone in a blizzard because society had forgotten them. That mission would take years, maybe decades, maybe her entire life. But Margaret was ready. She'd survived 2 years homeless, had nearly died, had lost everything, and found it again. Had built something meaningful from nothing. If she could do that, she could do anything. And with people like Jack and Tom and Riley and everyone else who joined this fight, she knew she wasn't alone. Knew the mission would succeed. Knew that together, they'd make sure nobody else had to die in the cold while the world looked away. That was the promise, made in a blizzard, kept through years of work, sustained by belief that people mattered.
All people, regardless of age or situation or how many times they'd fallen, everyone deserved dignity. Everyone deserved help. Everyone deserved to be seen. And Margaret Hayes, 75 years old, survivor, advocate, builder of second chances, would spend the rest of her life making sure that promise was kept. One person at a time. One act of kindness at a time. One impossible mission at a time. Because that's what heroes did. They didn't quit. They didn't give up. They kept fighting until everyone was safe. And this fight was far from over. 5 years after the blizzard, Margaret stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. 78 years old now, hair completely white, moving slower, but her voice was still strong. The National Coalition for Homeless Veterans had invited her to speak, to share the second chance housing model, to inspire replication across the country. Jack stood in the audience, 42 now, medically retired, but working as a consultant for veterans programs. Riley sat beside him. The German Shepherd was 13, gray around the muzzle, arthritis in his hips, but still alert, still professional. Margaret looked at them, drew strength, then spoke.
5 years ago, I was dying under an overpass in Denver, with my dog Buddy. We had 8 minutes left, maybe 10. Hypothermia was shutting down our bodies. I'd accepted death, made peace with it.
Then Lieutenant Jack Morrison and his K-9 Riley found us, saved us, changed everything. She paused, let the audience process. But saving my life wasn't enough. Jack helped me access benefits I'd been denied. Housing, medical care, dignity. And once I was stable, I started helping others. That became Second Chance Housing, a program that houses homeless elderly and veterans with their pets. In 5 years, we've served over 300 people in Denver. Our success rate is 91%.
People stabilize, get jobs, transition to permanent housing. It works. A hand raised. Mrs. Hayes, what makes your program different from other homeless services?
We see the whole person, not just their housing status. We understand that for many elderly homeless, their pet is family, their last connection to better times. Traditional shelters make them choose, abandon the pet or stay homeless. That's not a choice. That's cruelty. We say, keep your pet, keep your dignity, keep your hope, and we give you the support to rebuild your life. Another question. How much does it cost per person? $2,700 annually. Compare that to $50,000 for emergency services when someone lives on the streets. We're not just humane, we're economical. We save lives and we save money. Can this model scale nationally? Margaret smiled. It already is. Phoenix has 40 units. Seattle has 35. Portland, Austin, Chicago, Philadelphia, all implementing similar programs. Over 800 people housed nationally using our model, and growing. Because it works. Because compassion works. Because treating people with dignity instead of contempt produces results. After the speech, dozens of people approached. Mayors, city council members, nonprofit directors, all wanting to replicate second chance housing in their cities. Jack helped Margaret through the crowd. She was exhausted. These trips took more out of her than they used to. Her diabetes was harder to control. Her blood pressure medication had been adjusted 3 times this year. Her body was wearing out. But her mission wasn't finished. Couldn't be finished until every city had programs like this. Until no elderly person had to choose between shelter and their pet. Until the system worked for everyone. That night in the hotel, Margaret collapsed. Just fell. Jack called 911. The paramedics arrived within minutes. Her blood sugar had crashed. Diabetic emergency. They stabilized her, transported her to the hospital. The doctor was concerned. Mrs. Hayes, your body is under too much stress. You're traveling constantly, not resting, not managing your conditions properly. You need to slow down. I can't slow down. Too many people need help. If you don't slow down, you'll die. Your heart is showing signs of strain. Your kidneys are struggling. You're 78. Your body has limits. Jack sat beside her bed. Margaret, listen to the doctor. You've built something incredible, but you need to let others carry it forward. Tom runs the Denver program. Other cities have their own directors. You don't have to do everything yourself. But if I stop, it doesn't stop. It keeps going. That's the point. You built something sustainable, something that outlives you. Now let it live. Let others do the work. You've earned rest. Margaret knew he was right. But resting felt like quitting, and she'd never been good at quitting. They flew back to Denver the next day. Margaret moved slower, needed help, hated needing help, but accepted it because she didn't have a choice. Tom met them at the apartment. He looked worried. Margaret, we need to talk about the Denver program, about your role. What about it? You're working 60 hours a week, at 78, with serious health conditions. The board is concerned. They want you to step back. Become a consultant instead of day-to-day director. Let me handle operations. You want to push me out? After everything I built? No, I want you to survive. To live long enough to see this program succeed nationally. You can't do that if you work yourself to death. Please, let me carry some weight. Let others help. Margaret wanted to argue, but she looked at Riley. The old dog was lying in his bed, barely moving. His breathing labored. He was 13, ancient for a German shepherd. Every day was a gift. She thought about Buddy, who died at 12, who she'd had 12 wonderful years with, who'd taught her about loyalty and love and refusing to quit, but also about knowing when to rest. Buddy had known, at the end. He'd stopped fighting, had let go peacefully, with dignity. Maybe it was time for Margaret to learn the same lesson. Okay, I'll step back, become advisory, but I'm not disappearing. I still want to help, still want to be part of this. Tom hugged her. You'll always be part of this. You're the foundation. We're just building on what you created. The transition was hard. Margaret had defined herself by this work for 5 years. It had given her purpose after the streets, after Buddy's death, after surviving what should have killed her. But slowly she adjusted, spent more time at home, with Riley. The old dog needed her. His arthritis was worse. He could barely walk some days. Dr. Chen visited regularly, managed his pain, kept him comfortable. He's ready, Dr. Chen said quietly one day. His quality of life is declining. He's in pain. We can manage it, but he's 13. He's tired. You understand? Margaret did understand. She'd been through this with Buddy. But it didn't make it easier. Jack came over that evening, sat with Riley, his retired partner, his best friend, the dog who'd saved Margaret's life by alerting to her in the blizzard. "You're a good boy, Riley. The best. You served honorably, saved lives, made a difference. Now you can rest. You've earned it." Riley's tail thumped weakly. He looked at Jack with complete trust, complete love. The next morning, Dr. Chen came to the apartment. Jack was there, Margaret too, and Tom and Dorothy. Everyone who'd been part of Riley's retirement life. They sat with him, told him he was loved, thanked him for his service, for saving Margaret, for being exactly what the world needed. Dr. Chen administered the injection gently.
He'll just fall asleep. No pain, just peace.
Riley looked at Jack, then at Margaret. His tail wagged one last time. Then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and was gone. Jack held the dog's body, cried openly. Margaret had never seen him cry, even through his injury, even through the hardest moments. But losing Riley broke something in him. He was my partner for 8 years, saved my life more times than I can count. Found you that night, when I would have driven past.
He was the best of us. And now he's gone.
Margaret put her hand on Jack's shoulder. He died knowing he was loved, knowing he mattered, knowing his life had purpose. That's all any of us can ask for. They scattered Riley's ashes in the same park where Margaret had scattered Buddy's, the 2 dogs who'd saved her life, who'd taught her about loyalty, about love, about refusing to quit until the mission was complete. "Thank you, Riley," Margaret said, "for finding me, for staying with me, for teaching me that heroes come in all forms. You were a true hero." Jack was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. "I need to tell you something about that night, the blizzard, when we found you." "What about it?" "Riley didn't alert to you randomly. We were doing training exercises miles away, but Riley kept pulling toward your location, insisting. I almost turned back, thought he was just distracted. But he wouldn't stop, pulled harder. Finally, I listened, followed him, and he led me straight to you. Like he knew, like he understood someone was dying and we had to help." "How did he know?" "I don't know. Dogs have instincts we don't understand. Maybe he smelled your hypothermia. Maybe he heard Buddy. Maybe he just knew someone needed help. But he refused to quit until I followed him, until we found you. That was Riley, mission-focused, refusing to fail. The best canine I ever worked with. He saved my life. You both did. And you gave him purpose in retirement. He loved living with you, loved helping at Second Chance Housing, loved being part of something meaningful. You gave him a good last few years. Thank you for that." After Riley's death, something shifted in Jack. He'd lost his career to injury. Now he'd lost his partner to age. He was 42, medically retired, struggling to find purpose. Margaret recognized the look. She'd had it herself. After Robert died, after she lost her house, after 2 years on the streets, stripped away her identity. "You need a mission," she told him. "Something to fight for. You're not built for retirement." "What mission? I can't deploy, can't serve actively. What am I supposed to do?" "Help me. Expand Second Chance Housing nationally. You have credibility, resources, connections. Use them. Make this program available in every city. That's a mission worth fighting for." Jack considered. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you purpose. A way to keep serving, keep saving lives, keep making a difference. We need someone with your skills, your determination, your refusal to accept failure. That's you. What's the role? National Director. You coordinate all the city programs, raise funds, cut through bureaucracy, train new directors, evangelize the model, make sure it works everywhere. Make sure nobody has to die in a blizzard because the system failed them. Jack looked at her, really looked at her.
You're offering me what you had to give up. Day-to-day operations. Control. Purpose. I'm offering you what you need, and what the program needs. Someone who won't quit, who'll fight for every person, who understands the mission. That's you. What about you? I'll advise, support, share the story. But I'm 78. My body is failing. I can't do this anymore. But you can. So do it. Complete the mission I started. That's how you honor Riley. By continuing the work he helped begin. Jack accepted. Became National Director of Second Chance Housing. Within 2 years, he'd expanded the program to 32 cities. Over 2,000 people housed. Success rates remained above 90%. He was relentless. Used every skill the Navy had taught him. Strategy, logistics, leadership. Refusing to accept no. Finding ways through obstacles. Completing missions that seemed impossible. And Margaret watched. Advised when asked. Attended grand openings when she could. But mostly, she rested. Spent time with Dorothy and Tom. Volunteered occasionally at the Denver shelter. Lived quietly. But her health continued declining. At 80, she had a heart attack. Mild, but a warning. The doctor was blunt. Mrs. Hayes, your heart is weak. Your kidneys are operating at 40%. Your diabetes is barely controlled. You need to make arrangements. Plan for end of life. You don't have years left. Maybe months. Maybe weeks. Margaret wasn't afraid. She'd faced death before, in that blizzard. She'd accepted it then, made peace with it. She could do the same now. But she wanted to see one more thing. The program reaching 100 cities. 200. Making sure it would last after she was gone. Jack visited every week, brought updates, new cities launching, success stories, people saved. Phoenix housed their 500th person last month. Seattle's expanding to 80 units. Chicago's adding pet therapy to their program. Residents' dogs visit other homeless shelters. Providing comfort, hope. Your idea is spreading. It's not my idea anymore. It's everyone's. That's what I wanted. For it to be bigger than me. For it to last. It will last. Because you built something sustainable. Something that actually works. You changed how America houses homeless elderly. That's your legacy. One evening, Dorothy came to visit. She was 83 now. Still living independently. Still caring for Whiskers. The old cat was 17, ancient, but alive. Margaret, I need to tell you something I've never told anyone. What is it? That night, when I was living in my car, when I came to find you at the shelter, I was planning to kill myself. That night, I had pills, had written a note. I was done, couldn't take it anymore. But someone told me about you, said you understood, said you'd help. So I came, and you did help. You saved my life, not just by housing me, by seeing me, by treating me like I mattered. I need you to know that. You saved me. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. You saved yourself by choosing to come, by choosing to try one more time. That took courage. Maybe, but you made it possible. You and Jack and Riley. You showed me kindness was still real, that people still cared, that I still mattered.
That's worth living for.
3 months after her 80th birthday, Margaret collapsed again. Major heart attack this time. They rushed her to the hospital. Got her stabilized, but the damage was extensive. The doctor spoke to Jack and Tom. She's not going to recover fully. Her heart is too weak. We can manage her here, keep her comfortable, but she's at end of life. Days, maybe a week. Jack sat beside her bed, held her hand. You did it, Margaret. You completed the mission, saved thousands of lives, changed the system, made sure nobody else has to die in a blizzard alone. You won. Margaret's voice was weak.
Not one. Just started. You have to finish. Promise me.
I promise. We'll keep expanding, keep helping, keep honoring what you built. I won't let it die.
Tell me about the numbers. How many people now?
3,247 people, housed across 43 cities. Success rate is 93% nationally. You saved over 3,000 lives, and the program will save thousands more. Because of you. Because of us. Because of everyone who helped, who believed, who refused to look away when people needed help. Tom arrived. Dorothy, Patricia, Linda from the shelter, Dr. Chen. All the people who'd been part of this journey. They came to say goodbye. Each person shared what Margaret had meant to them, how she'd changed their lives, how she'd shown them that compassion mattered, that one person could make a difference.
You were homeless, Patricia said. The system failed you completely. But instead of becoming bitter, you became better. You used your pain to help others. That's extraordinary.
I just did what Jack did for me. Helped. Because helping matters. Because people matter. That's all. It's everything, Jack said. What you started. It's changing the country. Other programs are adopting pet-friendly policies because of you. The VA is revising their homeless veteran programs because of you. Cities are rethinking how they handle elderly homelessness because of you. You didn't just build one program. You changed the entire conversation. That night, alone with Jack, Margaret spoke quietly. Will you do something for me? When I die, scatter my ashes with Robert and Buddy and Riley, in that park, where all of this started. Of course. And keep the program going. For Robert, for Buddy, for Riley, for everyone who didn't survive. Make sure their deaths meant something by saving lives. I will, I promise. One more thing. Don't let them make me a saint. I wasn't perfect. I was just a woman who survived, who tried to help, who refused to quit. That's not sainthood. That's just being human. Make sure people remember that, so they know they can do it too. You don't have to be extraordinary. You just have to care. I'll tell them, but Margaret, you were extraordinary. Not because you were perfect, because you turned suffering into service, turned pain into purpose, turned your own hell into heaven for others. That's the definition of extraordinary. Margaret smiled. Then I'll take it. Tell people that. Tell them one person can make a difference. One act of kindness multiplies. One decision to help changes everything. That's what I want remembered. Not me. The lesson. She died 3 days later, peacefully, surrounded by people who loved her, who'd been changed by knowing her, who would carry her mission forward. The funeral was packed, hundreds of people, residents of Second Chance Housing from across the country, veterans, social workers, volunteers, politicians who'd learned to care because Margaret had made it impossible not to. Jack gave the eulogy. Margaret Hayes was 73 years old when Riley and I found her dying in a blizzard. She had 8 minutes left, maybe 10. But she survived, and instead of just being grateful for her own survival, she built something that would help others survive too. In 8 years, Second Chance Housing has served over 3,000 people. 93% success rate. Lives saved. Dignity restored. Hope renewed. That's Margaret's legacy. He paused, composed himself. But here's what Margaret would want you to know. She wasn't superhuman. She was just a woman who decided to help, who refused to look away, who believed people mattered. And that decision, that one decision to care, changed thousands of lives. So the question isn't, what can we do to honor Margaret? The question is, what can we do to be like Margaret? Who can we help? Who can we see? Who can we refuse to abandon? That's how we honor her, by living the lessons she taught. They scattered her ashes in the park, with Robert, with Buddy, with Riley. All the souls who'd shaped her life, who'd given her purpose, who taught her that love mattered, that loyalty mattered, that refusing to quit mattered. 5 years after Margaret's death, Jack stood in front of the White House. The president was signing a bill, the Margaret Hayes Act. Federal funding for pet-friendly homeless housing programs. Mandatory in every VA facility. Encouraged in every city. Jack had lobbied for it, testified before Congress, used Margaret's story, her data, her proof that compassion worked, that housing people with their pets wasn't feel-good nonsense. It was effective policy. The president spoke. Margaret Hayes showed America that we can do better, that housing homeless elderly with dignity is possible, that including their pets isn't a luxury, it's essential. Because for many people, their pet is family, their last connection to stability, their reason to keep living. This bill ensures that no city, no VA facility, no program will force people to choose between shelter and their animals. That's compassionate policy. That's effective policy. That's Margaret's legacy. Second Chance Housing was now in 112 cities, over 12,000 people housed. The program Margaret started under an overpass had become national policy, had changed how America treated its most vulnerable citizens. Jack thought about that night. The blizzard. Riley alerting to someone in distress. Finding Margaret and Buddy. 8 minutes from death. That one decision to follow his canine, that one act of helping a stranger, had led to this. To national policy. To thousands of lives saved. One person, he said quietly. One act of kindness. One refusal to look away. That's all it took. Margaret proved it. Now 12,000 people are alive because she decided to help after being helped. That's the lesson. That's what we have to remember. 10 years after the blizzard, Tom stood in front of the Denver program. He was 77 now, still managing, still serving, still honoring Margaret's vision. A young woman approached, maybe 30, with an elderly woman and a small dog. Is this Second Chance Housing? The program that helps homeless elderly with pets? It is. How can we help? This is my grandmother. She's been living in her car for 3 months. She has diabetes, high blood pressure, and her dog, Max. She won't go to a shelter because they won't take Max. And I can't house her. I'm in a studio apartment. I'm terrified she's going to die in her car. Can you help? Tom looked at the grandmother, saw Margaret, saw himself, saw everyone who'd been where she was. Yes, we can help. Come inside. Let's get you registered, get you housing, get you safe. You and Max both. That's what we do here. As he helped them, Tom thought about Margaret, about her refusal to accept that homelessness was inevitable, about her determination to build something that would outlast her.
about her belief that one person could make a difference. She'd been right. One person could make a difference.
And that one person's difference could inspire others to make differences, could create ripples that spread across the country, across generations. Margaret Hayes had died at 80. But her mission didn't die. It multiplied. It grew. It became part of how America treated its elderly homeless. It became policy. It became legacy. Dorothy died at 86, in her apartment, with whiskers, surrounded by photos and memories and dignity. She left a note. "Thank you, Margaret, for seeing me, for saving me, for showing me that I mattered. I died knowing I was loved. That's all anyone can ask for." Tom retired at 80, handed the Denver program to a young woman named Sarah, who'd been homeless herself at 63, who'd been housed through second chance housing, who'd rebuilt her life, who now dedicated it to helping others. "Keep it going," Tom told her. "For Margaret. For everyone who didn't survive. For everyone who will survive because this program exists. Keep it going." 20 years after the blizzard, Jack sat in his office. He was 62 now, still national director, still refusing to quit, still fighting for every person. His walls were covered with photos. Margaret and Buddy, Riley, Robert, Dorothy, Tom. All the people who'd been part of this journey. All the people who'd proved that compassion mattered. That systems could be changed. That one person's decision to help could save thousands. A knock on the door. A young Navy SEAL, recently retired, injured, looking for purpose. "Sir, my name is Lieutenant Rebecca Martinez. I heard about your program, about what you built after you retired. I'm looking for something similar, a mission, a way to keep serving. Can you help?" Jack smiled. "Yes, I can help. Come in. Let me tell you about a woman named Margaret Hayes, about a blizzard, about a canine who refused to quit, about how one act of kindness changed everything, and about how you can be part of continuing that mission." Because that was the lesson, the legacy, the truth that Margaret had lived and died proving. One person could make a difference. One act of kindness could multiply. One refusal to look away could save thousands of lives. Margaret Hayes had been homeless, had been dying, had been forgotten by the system that should have protected her. But she'd survived. And she'd used that survival to build something that ensured others would survive too. She'd taken 8 minutes from death and turned it into 20 years of purpose, into thousands of lives saved, into national policy, into legacy that would outlast her by generations. That was the power of one person deciding to care, one person refusing to quit, one person believing that everyone mattered, no matter their age, their situation, their past. Margaret Hayes had proven it was possible, had shown America that compassion wasn't weakness. It was the strongest force in the world. And 20 years after a Navy SEAL and his canine found a dying grandmother and her dog in a blizzard, that force was still changing lives, still saving people, still proving that in the darkest, coldest moments, humanity could shine through. One person at a time, one act of kindness at a time, one refusal to give up at a time. That was Margaret's legacy. That was the mission she'd started. That was the truth she died proving. And it would continue, long after everyone who knew her was gone, long after the memories faded, long after the stories became legend, because some truths are too powerful to die. Some missions are too important to abandon, Some legacies are too meaningful to forget. Margaret Hayes had been one person, one homeless grandmother with one loyal dog, dying in one blizzard. And from that one moment, she'd built something that would save thousands, that would change a nation, that would prove forever that one person deciding to care could change everything. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. That was the unshakable truth she'd lived and died proving. One person can make a difference. One act of kindness can save a life. One decision to help can change the world. And in the end, that's all that matters. Not how much money you have, not how much power you hold, not how famous you become. What matters is whether you see people who need help, whether you stop, whether you refuse to look away, whether you care enough to act.
Margaret Hayes cared, and because she cared, thousands of people lived who would have died. Thousands of families stayed together who would have been separated. Thousands of elderly people died with dignity who would have frozen alone. That's the power of one person deciding that compassion matters more than convenience, that people matter more than policy, that love matters more than anything. Margaret proved it. Jack carried it forward. And every person helped by Second Chance Housing became living proof that the lesson was true. One person can change everything. All they have to do is care enough to try.